Lesson 53, In the Public Interest. We'll talk about how to safeguard the public interest in this lesson. Please first listen to the text with this question on mind. What could not be reported in the official files? 官方档案中不能记录什么？
The Scandinavian countries are much admired all over the world for their enlightened social policies. Sweden has evolved an excellent system for protecting the individual citizen from high-handed or incompetent public officers. The system has worked so well that it has been adopted in other countries too. The Swedes were the first to recognize that public officials like civil servants, police officers, health inspectors, or tax collectors can make mistakes or act overzealously in the belief that they are serving the public. As long ago as 1809, the Swedish Parliament introduced a scheme to safeguard the interest of the individual. A parliamentary committee representing all political parties appoints a person who is suitably qualified to investigate private grievances against the state. The official title of the person is Justite Ombudsman, but the Swedes commonly refer to him as the J.O. or Ombudsman. The Ombudsman is not subject to political pressure. He investigates complaints, large and small, that come to him from all levels of society. As complaints must be made in writing, the Ombudsman receives an average of 1,200 letters a year. He has 8 lawyer assistants to help him, and he examines every single letter in detail. There is nothing secretive about the Ombudsman's work, for his correspondence is open to public inspection. If a citizen's complaint is justified, the Ombudsman will act on his behalf. The action he takes varies according to the nature of the complaint. He may gently reprimand an official or even suggest to Parliament that a law be altered. The following case is a typical example of the Ombudsman's work. A foreigner living in a Swedish village wrote to the Ombudsman complaining that he had been ill-treated by the police, simply because he was a foreigner. The Ombudsman immediately wrote to the chief of police in the district asking him to send a record of the case. There was nothing in the record to show that the foreigner's complaint was justified, and the chief of police strongly denied the accusation. It was impossible for the Ombudsman to take action. But when he received a similar complaint from another foreigner in the same village, he immediately sent one of his lawyers to investigate the matter. The lawyer ascertained that a policeman had indeed dealt roughly with foreigners on several occasions. The fact that the policeman was prejudiced against foreigners could not be recorded in the official files. It was only possible for the Ombudsman to find this out by sending one of his representatives to check the facts. The policeman in question was severely reprimanded and was informed that if any further complaints were lodged against him, he would be prosecuted. The Ombudsman's prompt action at once put an end to an unpleasant practice which might have gone unnoticed.
Can you answer the question now? What could not be reported in official files? Right, the fact that the policeman was prejudiced against foreigners. But the Ombudsman managed to solve this problem by sending one of his representatives to investigate, so that the policeman was warned. This is actually an example of how an Ombudsman works. The second paragraph explains his role and responsibility in general. For example, how he is selected, how he deals with complaints, what rights he has, etc. The opening paragraph is a preparation for this particular system. The first sentence actually acts as the topic sentence. The Scandinavian countries are famous for their enlightened policy. Right. Now let's look at some language points. Sweden has evolved an excellent system. Evolve means gradually develop. Let's look at 2 examples. Human beings evolved from apes. 人类是由猿演变成的。The small company has evolved over the years into a multinational organization. 这个小公司多年之后发展成为一个跨国机构。Protecting the individual citizen from high-handed or incompetent public officers. Incompetent means those who do not have the skills to do the job properly, or not qualified. The system has been adopted in other countries. Adopt means to put something into action or into use. Adopt is often used with these words: to adopt certain kind of approach or strategy, measure, a kind of attitude or policy. For example, the Labour Party has adopted more moderate policies in the last few years. 采取了更加温和的政策。Adopt can also mean different things in different contexts. For example, the American actress was required to adopt a British accent for the film. 为了拍这部电影，要使用英国口音。They have no children of their own, but they adopted a son. Adopt 在这里是领养的意思。In the belief that they are serving the public. In the belief means assuming that they are serving the public, or they are confident that they are serving the public. Let's look at one more example. She started cheating her family in the mistaken belief that she wouldn't be discovered. She simply assumed that she wouldn't be discovered. To safeguard the interest of the individual. To safeguard something means to protect against harm or destruction. For example, the new system will safeguard the country from attack. Notice the preposition is from. This program will safeguard the computer system against viruses. Safeguard something against can also be acceptable. Notice here the preposition is against. Both are all right. Safeguard the computer against viruses. 防病毒。A committee appoints a person who is suitably qualified. To appoint somebody means to choose somebody officially for a certain job. For example, he has just been appointed the director of our department. 他刚刚被任命为我们的系主任。You can also say he has just been appointed as the director. We can also use be appointed to do something. For example, a committee has already been appointed to investigate the case. To appoint a person who is suitably qualified to investigate. Qualified means having the right qualifications to do a certain job. He is now a qualified doctor. Here, it indicates that he has passed all the necessary exams, and now he can practice as a doctor. What makes you think that you are qualified for this job? Be qualified for certain job. I am not qualified to take up this responsibility. We can also use be qualified to do something. To investigate private grievances against the state. Grievance against something means complaint to something. It's a formal use. The Ombudsman is not subject to political pressure. Be subject to means to experience something unpleasant. Here it means the ombudsman is not controlled by any political power or does not depend on any political organizations. Let's look at more examples. Cars are subject to a high domestic tax. It means cars are charged with a high domestic tax. Any actions will be subject to the director's permission, which means any actions will need to go through the director's permission. There is nothing secretive about the ombudsman's work. Secretive, notice, it's a disapproving word, meaning hiding feelings or thoughts or actions. For example, her secretive behavior made us very suspicious. It's different from the word secret. For example, this is top secret information. Secret simply means not known to other people. His correspondence is open to public inspection. Be open to is used to describe a possibility. So it means his correspondence can be inspected by the public. Let's look at more examples. The university library is not open to the general public. It means it's not available to the public, or the general public are not allowed to use the university library. The attitude is open to criticism, which means the attitude can be criticized. I think his sincerity is open to doubt, which means I think his sincerity should be doubted. We are open to any reasonable suggestions, which means we welcome any kind of suggestions, so long as they are reasonable. If a citizen's complaint is justified, be justified means be given a good reason. So it means if a citizen's complaint has a good reason. Let's look at these examples. How are you going to justify yourself or your actions? How are you going to find a good reason for your actions? I cannot justify taking another day off work means I simply cannot find a good reason to take another day off work. The results of the study have certainly justified the money spent on it. Here, justified means the results of the study have certainly proved that the money spent was worthy. The ombudsman will act on his behalf. On somebody's behalf or on the behalf of somebody means representing somebody. For example, on behalf of the company, I'd like to thank you all for your work. 代表公司. He had been ill-treated by the police. Ill being used as a prefix, meaning badly, is a formal and a slightly dated usage. I'll give you more examples. Ill-informed means not knowing well enough. Ill-mannered means rude or impolite. Ill-tempered means bad-tempered. The lawyer ascertained that a police had indeed dealt roughly with foreigners. Ascertain means make certain or confirm. It's a formal word. For example, the police have so far been unable to ascertain the cause of the fire. Ascertain the cause of the fire means make the cause of the fire certain. He ascertained that he would not reveal it to anyone, so we can also use that clause to follow ascertain, which means he assured that he would not reveal it to anybody. Have you ascertained whether he's coming or not? Ascertain here means confirm. The policeman had indeed dealt roughly with foreigners. Roughly here means rudely. Let's look at other possible meanings of roughly. He pushed me roughly to one side, which means he pushed me violently to one side. We have roughly the same tastes. Here roughly means approximately, 大概相同的趣味。The policeman was prejudiced against foreigners. 歧视外国人。Give you one more example. Some Europeans are prejudiced against Americans. The noun form is prejudice. We all know there's a famous novel by Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, 傲慢与偏见。Racial prejudice, 种族歧视。Sexual prejudice, 性别歧视。Prejudice can also be used as a verb. For example, his unhappy childhood has prejudiced him against having children, which means it has made him prejudiced against having children. An unpleasant practice which might have gone unnoticed. Might have gone unnoticed means might have passed or happened with nobody noticed it. So go here is being used as a link verb and is often followed by a negative adjective to mean be in an unpleasant state. Give you one more example. Why do so many accidents go unreported? Which means why are so many accidents happen and without being reported? The content of this text is about the ombudsman, who symbolizes justice, and language-wise, the author also chooses to use an impersonal style. 在写作风格上，作者也力求一种非个人化。Let's look at some examples. The ombudsman is not subject to political pressure. Be subject to is a very formal phrase. His correspondence is open to public inspection. Correspondence, letters, but correspondence is a formal word choice. And be open to public inspection simply means can be inspected by the public, but sounds more formal. The action he takes varies according to the nature of the complaints. The author uses abstract wordings. Instead of saying what he does depends on what kind of complaints they are. The fact that the policeman was prejudiced against foreigners could not be recorded in the official files. He uses the fact as the subject, and that clause to illustrate the subject fact. And the passive voice could not be recorded is also used in order to emphasize that this rule is impersonal. It cannot be changed by any personal will. So this text is about how Sweden has such a system to safeguard the individual's interests from being violated by the public officials. The text actually tells us why such a system is necessary. The public officials can make mistakes even when they believe they are serving the public. And that actually explains the basis for a sound legal system as well, to prevent from human errors. So that in English, there's a saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. 权力腐化，绝对的权力就会引向绝对的腐化。Based on the same reason, the United States claims to have the best government form in the world, because its foundation is the separation of power in order to safeguard against tyranny. 它的基础呢，就是为了防止专制的权力分离。我们都听说过三权分立。Its power is divided among three things. First of all, legislature, or law-making power, which actually refers to the Congress, and the Congress is made up by the Senate and the House of Representatives, 就是由国会两院构成的立法机构。And secondly, an executive, which refers to the American president, 执法机构指的就是总统。And the third is the judicial power, 司法机构 referring to the Supreme Court, 指的是最高法院。In such form of government, people often call the American government, as Abraham Lincoln once described, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Okay, so much on the topic of the government form. Bye for now.